Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeremy Finley here in the digital studios here at WSMV. I hope you all are having a great afternoon. I appreciate you checking us out at this time to see what we're working on. Wanted to get on here and bring you up to date on a story that many of you, if you've been watching for a while, are pretty familiar with. And this has really angered a lot of women across the city. And what we found out today is even more infuriating to a lot of women. If you recognize the gentleman in the orange jumpsuit that we've been showing you, there he is right there. That is TK Murri. You may recall our investigations into TK Murri. He's the former massage therapist here in Nashville, who we found that 25 women filed police reports of sex crimes against him over a 4-year period. But it took police that long, over 4 years, to actually arrest him. That was our original reporting, and then we of course exposed his awful crimes. As you may recall, he then went into a plea deal and ultimately was sentenced to 6 years in prison. So fast forward to about 5 months ago. 5 months ago, he went to a parole hearing, was denied parole. So they essentially said, look, you're going to be in prison for the rest of your time. But then he did something just about a couple weeks ago, or rather his attorney did. He filed a motion to have his sentence reduced. So if this is the first time you've heard about this, this basically means I want to get out of jail early, and here are the reasons why. Again, if you're just now joining us here on Facebook, we're talking about this guy, TK Murri. He is the gentleman who has committed sex crimes against so many women here in Nashville, and now he has filed a motion to say, I want to get out of jail early. So that resulted in a court hearing today. He went in front of Judge Jennifer Smith this morning, happened about 10 o'clock this morning, and he gave the reasons why he believes that he should be getting out of jail. Also in the courtroom was one of his victims, a young lady who he lured to his apartment for a job interview and then assaulted her while she was in the apartment. So you may recall that when we first did our investigations that then prompted him to ultimately to be arrested and convicted, when I faced down with him, when I showed up and I asked him as he was being arrested, what did he have to say to the women who accused him of these sex crimes? And he made a joke of it, if you remember. And his joke was, I don't speak English. I don't speak English. That's what he said to me when I asked the questions. Well, now he says he is a much different person. He says that since being in prison, he has taken yoga classes to find inner peace, and that he is also tutoring other inmates, and that he realizes what he's done wrong. He realizes the gravity of his circumstance and of the circumstances he caused on these women. If you recall before, when he was at his parole hearing, he referred to them as his accusers, and that's part of the reason that he was denied parole, because he didn't call them his victims, he called them his accusers. Well, today in court, he ultimately came out and did call them his victims and said that he thinks every day of what he did and how apologetic he is, and that he now believes that he should be out of prison, which prompted a pretty interesting response from the district attorney in this case. In the hearing, Murri talked about all of his college degrees, that he had all these advanced degrees. And the district attorney ultimately said, well, how many degrees you had? And he said like 3 to 4. He said, well, you didn't have any knowledge at that point about boundaries, and you had all of these college degrees. So going to college for all that time didn't teach you about boundaries, or essentially what was right or wrong. So then it ultimately came down to the judge's decision. And the judge's decision was to decide whether or not she should release him out of jail. So what the judge said was, and this is the first time we'd heard about this, you ultimately reached a plea deal with the district attorney's office. That's something we knew about. But what we didn't know is just how many charges against Murri were dropped so he could get this plea deal. So essentially they dropped 12 charges against him, including rape, in exchange for him to agree to a 6-year prison deal. The judge reminded him of that and said, look, you made the deal, you're staying in jail, staying in prison. So you can imagine how that made one of his victims in court feel. She was, again, the young woman that was there who had been lured into a job interview at his home and then was assaulted. So we spoke with her after court. And coming up tonight at 6 o'clock, you're going to see all of this play out on television. So you're going to see what Murri had to say, what the district attorney had to say, and you're going to see what the victim felt when he addressed her for the first time. So we're going to bring all that to you at 6 o'clock. But I wanted to jump on here and tell you all what the events had happened today, that we continue to stay on this story because it was so important to these women, these 25 women here in Nashville, who ultimately said, look, this man committed sex crimes against us. And ultimately, nothing happened for years and years, ultimately, until we started doing the stories, and then police ultimately arrested him. But we feel like it's important to stay with stories like this, to hold guys like this accountable, to show him that we're going to show up in court every time he does something like this, to put it on television to let you all know, because that is part of our mission. So I hope you'll join us tonight at 6 o'clock, where again, we're going to show you everything that happened. You're going to hear from these people. You're going to hear what the victim had to say once she saw everything that happened in court today. And it's going to be the latest chapter in this ongoing saga of reporting on Tarek Murri. So I appreciate you all tuning in. I hope you'll join me tonight at 6 o'clock as we show you what happened. So from now on, I hope that you will also contact me if you have anything that you're concerned about. I'm easily found on social media as well as here at the TV station. But I hope you guys have a great rest of the afternoon, and I hope to see you at 6 o'clock tonight. Have a great rest of your